Tonight, millions of seniors over 70 will do something they genuinely believe is good for their health, something their bodies are telling them to do, something that feels completely natural and even necessary. They will sleep for 9, 10, maybe even 11 hours. And when they wake up, they will feel exhausted, foggy, stiff, unrefreshed. And they will assume the problem is that they need even more sleep. That assumption is not just wrong. According to some of the most significant research in geriatric medicine published in the last decade, it could be slowly killing them. I've been practicing geriatric and internal medicine for over 20 years, and the relationship between sleep and aging is one of the most misunderstood topics I encounter with my senior patients. Almost every conversation goes the same way. Doctor, I am tired all the time, so I sleep as long as I can. Is that not what my body needs? The answer, and I want to be very precise here, is no, not after 70. And the reason why is something that will fundamentally change how you think about sleep for the rest of your life. Here's what nobody tells you. After 70, the relationship between sleep duration and health completely reverses from what it was at 40. More sleep does not mean more rest. More sleep does not mean better recovery. And more sleep, specifically more than a certain number of hours, is now associated in the clinical literature with significantly higher rates of dementia, cardiovascular disease, stroke, depression, and all cause mortality in adults over 70. In this video, I am going to tell you exactly what happens inside your brain and body when you sleep too long after 70. I will reveal the exact number of hours that research identifies as the optimal sleep window for seniors. I will explain why so many older adults find themselves sleeping more than this and what that actually signals about their health. And I will give you a specific, actionable protocol to reset your sleep to the optimal range starting this week. Stay with me until the end because I will also reveal the one afternoon habit that most seniors consider completely harmless that is secretly destroying their nighttime sleep quality and pushing them toward dangerous oversleeping. Almost nobody connects these two things, but the research is clear. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, how many hours do you typically sleep each night? And do you wake up feeling genuinely refreshed, or do you wake up feeling like you need more? Type your answer below. I read every single comment, and your response will actually help me understand what to cover in future videos. To understand why sleep duration becomes so critical after 70, you first need to understand how sleep itself changes as you age, because the sleep you get at 70 is biologically different from the sleep you got at 40, even if the number of hours looks the same on paper. Change one, sleep architecture deterioration. Sleep is not a single uniform state. It is a complex cycle of distinct stages: light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep that your brain cycles through multiple times each night. Each stage serves a different biological function. And after 70, the architecture of these cycles changes dramatically. Deep sleep, also called slow wave sleep, is where your body does its most critical repair work. Growth hormone is released, cellular damage is repaired, your immune system consolidates its defenses, and critically, your brain activates a recently discovered cleaning system called the glymphatic system, which flushes toxic proteins, including amyloid beta and tau, out of brain tissue. These are the exact proteins that accumulate in Alzheimer's disease. After 70, the amount of deep sleep you get in a given night drops significantly, regardless of how long you sleep. A landmark study published in Nature Neuroscience found that adults over 70 spent on average 70% less time in deep, slow wave sleep compared to young adults, even when total sleep time was identical. This is the critical insight. If your deep sleep is severely reduced, sleeping 10 hours gives you 10 hours of mostly light sleep, with very little of the restorative deep sleep your brain and body actually need. You wake up feeling exhausted, not because you slept too little, but because the sleep you got was low quality, regardless of its duration. Change two, circadian rhythm disruption. Your body runs on an internal biological clock, the circadian rhythm, that regulates when you feel sleepy, when you feel alert, when hormones are released, and when cellular repair processes activate. This clock is set primarily by light exposure and is maintained by a tiny region of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. After 70, the suprachiasmatic nucleus begins to deteriorate. Its cells become less numerous and less responsive. The circadian clock loses precision. Seniors find themselves feeling sleepy earlier in the evening, waking earlier in the morning, and, critically, experiencing fragmented sleep throughout the night with multiple awakenings. This fragmentation leads to a compensatory behavior that is actually quite harmful. Seniors who wake multiple times during the night spend longer in bed trying to accumulate enough sleep time. They nap during the day to make up for lost nighttime sleep, and they gradually shift to spending 9, 10, or 11 hours in bed while still feeling unrested. The problem is that this extended time in bed does not improve sleep quality. It actually worsens it by reducing what sleep scientists call sleep pressure, the biological drive for sleep that builds throughout the day and makes nighttime sleep deeper and more consolidated. Change three: melatonin decline. Melatonin is the hormone your brain produces to signal that it is time to sleep. After 70, melatonin production drops by approximately 50 to 80% compared to young adulthood. Less melatonin means weaker sleep signals, lighter sleep, more fragmentation, and greater sensitivity to any disruptions in the sleep environment. This melatonin decline is one of the primary reasons seniors sleep more lightly and wake more easily, and one of the primary drivers of the compensatory oversleeping pattern that leads to the health risks I'm about to describe. Now, let me walk you through what the clinical research actually shows about what happens to seniors who consistently sleep more than the optimal number of hours, because these findings are genuinely alarming and they are not widely known outside of geriatric medicine research circles. Risk one: dramatically increased dementia risk. This is the finding that I find most significant and most urgent for seniors to understand. A major study published in Nature Communications followed over 8,000 adults for 25 years and found that consistently sleeping more than 9 hours per night in adults over 65 was associated with a 30% higher risk of developing dementia compared to those sleeping 7 to 8 hours. But here is what makes this finding even more concerning. A separate study published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease found that the relationship between sleep duration and dementia risk follows what researchers call a U curve, meaning that both too little sleep and too much sleep are associated with higher dementia risk. The lowest risk point, the bottom of the U, sits between 7 and 8 hours for adults over 70. The biological mechanism is the glymphatic system I mentioned earlier. This brain cleaning system is most active during deep, slow wave sleep. And here is the paradox: oversleeping is actually associated with reduced deep sleep efficiency. So, seniors who sleep 10 or 11 hours may be getting less glymphatic cleaning activity than those who sleep a disciplined 7 to 8 hours with better sleep architecture. Less cleaning of toxic proteins, more amyloid accumulation, higher dementia risk from sleeping too much. Risk 2: cardiovascular disease and stroke. A meta analysis published in the European Heart Journal examined data from over 3 million adults across 74 different studies. The findings were unambiguous. Sleeping more than 8 hours per night was associated with a 41% increased risk of cardiovascular disease and a 56% increased risk of stroke compared to sleeping 7 to 8 hours. In adults specifically over 65, these risk elevations were even more pronounced. The researchers found a 38% increased risk of dying from any cause in older adults who consistently slept more than 9 hours. Why does oversleeping increase cardiovascular risk? Several mechanisms are proposed. Extended time in bed increases prolonged inactivity, which reduces circulation, promotes inflammation, and raises blood viscosity. Oversleeping is also often a symptom of underlying conditions, depression, sleep apnea, thyroid dysfunction, that independently carry cardiovascular risk. And long sleep duration appears to dysregulate inflammatory pathways, increasing levels of C reactive protein and interleukin 6, the same inflammatory markers associated with arterial disease. Risk 3: accelerated cognitive decline. Beyond dementia specifically, oversleeping in older adults is consistently associated with faster general cognitive decline, reduced processing speed, worsening memory, declining executive function, and reduced attention. A study from the University of Toronto followed 19,000 adults over 65 for 6 years and found that those who slept more than 9 hours per night showed cognitive decline at a rate 40% faster than those sleeping 7 to 8 hours, even after controlling for depression, physical health, and medication use. The researchers propose that oversleeping both reflects and accelerates neurological changes in aging brains, creating a cycle where declining brain health leads to more sleep, which further impairs the brain's ability to consolidate memory and clear toxic proteins during sleep. Risk 4: depression and isolation. This is a risk that is perhaps less obvious but clinically very significant. Oversleeping and depression are deeply interconnected in older adults. Each one feeds the other in a cycle that can be very difficult to break. Depression, which affects approximately 20% of adults over 65, commonly manifests as hypersomnia, the medical term for excessive sleep. Seniors who are depressed sleep more partly as an escape and partly because depression physically alters the neurochemistry of the sleep wake cycle, but the relationship also runs in reverse. Extended time in bed reduces daylight exposure, physical activity, and social interaction, all of which are powerful natural antidepressants. Seniors who spend 10 or 11 hours in bed are spending less time doing the things that protect mental health. And this reduction in protective activity deepens depressive symptoms, which in turn drives more sleeping. Recognizing oversleeping as a potential symptom of depression rather than simply as a rest need is one of the most important clinical distinctions in geriatric medicine. So, what is the right number? After reviewing the major longitudinal studies, the consensus in geriatric sleep medicine is clear. For adults over 70, the optimal sleep duration is 7 to 8 hours per night, not 9, not 10, 7 to 8. This is the range associated with the lowest dementia risk, the lowest cardiovascular risk, the best cognitive performance, and the lowest all cause mortality in adults over 70 across multiple large scale studies. Now, and this is critically important, I am not talking about time in bed. I am talking about actual sleep time. Many seniors spend 9 or 10 hours in bed, but sleep only 6 or 7 of those hours due to nighttime awakenings. In that scenario, the goal is not to reduce time in bed to 7 hours, which would further fragment the already insufficient sleep. The goal is to improve sleep quality so that 7 to 8 hours of bedtime produces 7 to 8 hours of actual sleep. The distinction between time in bed and actual sleep time is something your doctor needs to assess. If you are spending 7 to 8 hours in bed and still waking exhausted, the problem is sleep quality, not duration. If you are spending 10 or 11 hours in bed, the problem is very likely a combination of poor sleep quality, driving compensatory behavior, and the harmful cycle I described. There is also an important individual variation to acknowledge. A small percentage of adults genuinely function optimally at slightly above or below this range, but the key word is genuinely, meaning they wake naturally after that duration feeling refreshed and mentally sharp without using sleep as an escape from fatigue, depression, or boredom. If you are sleeping 9 or more hours and still waking exhausted, that is not genuine need. That is a cycle that needs to be addressed. Now, I promised you at the beginning of this video the one afternoon habit that most seniors consider completely harmless, but that is secretly destroying their nighttime sleep quality and pushing them toward dangerous oversleeping. The habit is the long afternoon nap. I want to be precise here because not all napping is harmful. A short nap of 20 to 30 minutes taken in the early afternoon before 2 p.m. has genuine restorative benefits and does not significantly interfere with nighttime sleep in most older adults. But the long nap, 60, 90 minutes or longer, taken in the mid or late afternoon, is one of the most common and most damaging sleep habits I see in seniors over 70, and almost none of them realize what it is doing to their sleep architecture. Here is the mechanism. Sleep pressure, the biological drive for sleep, builds throughout the waking day through the accumulation of a compound called adenosine in the brain. The longer you are awake, the more adenosine accumulates, the stronger your drive for sleep, and the deeper and more consolidated your nighttime sleep becomes. When you take a long afternoon nap, you discharge a significant portion of your adenosine, your accumulated sleep pressure. By the time evening comes, your drive for deep sleep is insufficient to produce the slow wave sleep your brain needs. You fall asleep easily enough. But you spend the night cycling through mostly light sleep. You wake multiple times. You feel unrested. And the next day, feeling exhausted from poor sleep quality, you take another long nap to compensate. This is the cycle, and it self perpetuates indefinitely until it is deliberately interrupted. A study published in Sleep Medicine found that older adults who napped for more than 60 minutes per day had 40% less slow wave deep sleep during subsequent nighttime sleep and reported significantly worse subjective sleep quality despite sleeping longer total hours. The recommendation is clear. If you nap, keep it to 20 to 30 minutes maximum, set an alarm, and schedule it before 2 p.m. so it does not significantly reduce your evening sleep pressure. This single change, more than almost any supplement or sleep aid, can begin to rebuild the deep sleep architecture your brain desperately needs. Now, let me give you a complete practical protocol for resetting your sleep to the optimal 7 to 8 hour range with better quality, more deep sleep, and genuine restoration. Strategy one, set a consistent wake time and do not move it. This is the single most powerful intervention in sleep medicine for disrupted sleep patterns. Choose a wake time, 6 a.m., 7 a.m., whatever fits your life, and get up at that time every single morning, regardless of how you slept the night before, no matter how tired you feel. No sleeping in on weekends, no staying in bed an extra hour because you slept poorly. The consistent wake time anchors your circadian rhythm. It rebuilds sleep pressure consistently, and within 2 to 3 weeks of strict adherence, most people find that their nighttime sleep consolidates. They fall asleep faster, sleep more deeply, and wake feeling more refreshed. This feels counterintuitive when you are exhausted. Getting up when you feel terrible seems wrong, but it is the foundation on which all other sleep improvements are built. Without it, nothing else works as well. Strategy 2. Morning light exposure within 15 minutes of waking. As I mentioned in a previous video on morning fatigue, natural morning light is the most powerful signal your circadian clock receives. Within 15 minutes of waking, step outside or sit by a bright window for at least 10 minutes. Overcast skies still provide 10 times more light intensity than indoor lighting. This morning light exposure sets your circadian clock for the day. It suppresses residual melatonin, elevates cortisol appropriately, and most importantly, it programs the timing of your evening melatonin release so that you feel genuinely sleepy at the appropriate time rather than fighting against a dysregulated clock. Strategy 3, limit bedtime to 7 to 8 hours. If you are currently spending 10 hours in bed, do not immediately cut to 7. Reduce gradually by 30 minutes every 3 to 4 days. This gradual reduction increases sleep pressure and improves sleep consolidation without causing the acute sleep deprivation that would result from a sudden large reduction. The goal is for your time in bed and your actual sleep time to match as closely as possible. 7 hours in bed, 7 hours of sleep. That is far more restorative than 10 hours in bed with 7 hours of fragmented light sleep. Strategy 4, address the underlying causes. If you are sleeping 9 or more hours and still exhausted, the oversleeping is very likely a symptom, not the root problem. The most common underlying causes in adults over 70 include sleep apnea, depression, hypothyroidism, anemia, cardiovascular insufficiency, medication side effects, and chronic pain. Each of these requires specific medical evaluation and treatment. Improving sleep hygiene alone will not fully resolve oversleeping that is driven by an underlying medical condition. A conversation with your physician, specifically mentioning that you are sleeping more than 8 hours and still waking fatigued, is essential. Strategy 5, evening light reduction. After 8 p.m., reduce your exposure to bright light, particularly the blue spectrum light emitted by phones, tablets, and televisions. Blue light suppresses melatonin production and delays your circadian clock, making it harder to fall asleep at the appropriate time and reducing the depth of early night slow wave sleep. Simple practical measures, dimming overhead lights in the evening, using warm toned lighting, wearing blue light filtering glasses if you use screens, and avoiding screens for at least 30 minutes before bed can meaningfully improve melatonin timing and sleep quality in older adults. Here is your complete action plan. Everything you need to begin resetting your sleep starting tonight. Action step 1, tonight, decide on your wake time. Write it down, set your alarm, commit to getting up at that exact time tomorrow morning regardless of how you slept. Action step 2, tomorrow morning, within 15 minutes of waking, get outside or sit by a bright window for at least 10 minutes. Make this non negotiable every single morning. Action step 3, if you currently nap for more than 30 minutes, set an alarm for 25 minutes starting today. This single change will begin rebuilding your deep sleep within 1 week. Action step 4. This week, speak with your physician about your sleep. Tell them specifically how many hours you sleep, how you feel upon waking, and whether you experience daytime exhaustion. Ask about sleep apnea screening, thyroid function, and whether any of your current medications are affecting sleep quality. Action step 5. Reduce your time in bed by 30 minutes starting this week. If you currently go to bed at 9 p.m. and wake at 8 a.m., shift your bedtime to 9:30 p.m. The following week, 10 p.m., gradually build sleep pressure until your sleep consolidates. Action step 6. Share this video with every senior in your life who sleeps long hours and still wakes exhausted, because almost all of them believe more sleep is the answer. This video gives them the science to understand why it is not and what to do instead. Sleep is not a passive process. It is one of the most active, complex, and biologically critical things your body does in a 24-hour period. And after 70, the rules of sleep change in ways that most people, and honestly, many doctors, do not fully appreciate. More is not better. Better is better. 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep with adequate, deep, slow wave sleep, consistent timing, and minimal fragmentation is worth more to your brain health, your cardiovascular system, your cognitive function, and your longevity than 9, 10, or 11 hours of light, fragmented, low quality sleep. The goal is not to spend more time unconscious. The goal is to give your brain the specific conditions it needs to clean itself, repair itself, and consolidate the experiences and information of each day into the neural structures that keep you sharp, balanced, and fully present for the life you have built. You deserve that quality of sleep. And more importantly, your brain needs it. If this video gave you something genuinely valuable, if it changed how you think about one of the most fundamental things your body does every night, please subscribe to this channel. Every week, I bring you senior specific, clinically grounded health information designed to help you live longer, sharper, and more independently than you ever thought possible. Hit the like button if you learned something important today. Leave a comment below. How many hours are you currently sleeping? And will you be making any changes after watching this? I read every comment and I genuinely want to hear from you. Thank you for watching. Sleep well, but not too long. Your brain is counting on you.